Hello and welcome to another video of Matuklasan, and here I'll show you how to construct frequency, percentage, and cumulative distributions for numerical data using Microsoft Excel. Let's take a look of this example. Ryle, a market analyst, decided to record the fuel consumption of 50 selected sports utility vehicles or SUV in a large city. Now, the data collected are shown below and are expressed in kilometers per liter. We need to construct a frequency distribution containing class boundaries, class mark, percentage, and cumulative percentage. To know more about these concepts, make sure to check my other videos discussing how to organize numerical data and the things that you need to remember whenever we construct a frequency distribution like this one. And for the construction, we will follow these particular steps. Remember that you could always do these steps manually, but since we are using Microsoft Excel, we will maximize the use of tools. Now, the first thing that we need to do is to find the class width by dividing the range with the number of classes. Remember that range is just equal to highest minus the lowest value. Now, to find the highest and the lowest value in our dataset, we're going to use the maximum function by typing equal sign max, open parentheses, and choose the range of values that we need to find the maximum value. Now, closing the formula with close parentheses or pressing enter, we have now the maximum value, which is 19. And for the lowest value, we will use the minimum value function. Same, we just need to select the range of data and then complete the formula by close parentheses or simply entering it on the keyboard. So we have now the highest and the lowest value. Since we now know the highest and the lowest value, we can now get the range by subtracting the highest and the lowest value. In this case, it's 19 minus 7. So the range is 12. The next step is for us to find the class width. And according to this, we can just divide the range by the number of classes. When deciding on the number of classes that you want for your distribution, it's always your call. So if you want 7, it could be 7 as long as it follows the interval 5 to 15 or 5 to 20 classes. But if you're having a hard time, you can use this particular formula, which is 2 raised to k should be greater than or equal to n. Now, you can see here that what we need to identify is the number of classes, which is k. So all you need to do is to identify the sample size or the number of data in the values. Now here, we have 50 selected sports utility vehicles. So meaning the value here for n is 50. And the appropriate k for this one will be 6. Why? Because we cannot use 2 raised to 3, right? Because 2 raised to 3 is just 8 and it's less than 50. You can't also use 4 because it's still less than 50. You cannot also use 5 because it's just 32. So therefore, we will use 6. But again, this is just a guide for all of us. You can actually select the minimum suggested number of classes, which is 5. But why is it important for us to use the 2 raised to k formula? Because sometimes the number of classes that we set is not enough for our data set. So anong gagawin natin? Okay, if that's the case, you can always remember this formula. But what if you forgot this formula and you decided to use 5? It's okay as long as the distribution will turn out okay. All right, what if we forgot the formula and we decided to choose 5 as our number of class? So we need to divide the range, which is 12 in this case, and divide it by 5. The answer is 2.4. But remember guys, we need to round up the value. Pag sinabing round up, it should be the next highest integer to 2. So the answer here is 3 whenever we will round up this value. If it's 2.1, 2.3, or kapag may decimal siya, no, piliin nyo lang 3. Halimbawa, 5.1 siya, you select 6. If it's 7.2, 7.32, 7.82, it's 8. Ganun lang lagi ang round up. Okay? Hindi mo pa rin alam yung roundup at nakalimutan mo at may Excel ka naman, no? Pwede pa rin nating gamitin yung roundup formula. So, by using roundup formula, okay, ito yung number dito na tinutukoy, ito yon. In this case, we need to divide 12 to 5, right? And then, we need to round it up to the nearest whole number. So, ilalagay ko dito na number of digits ng rounding up value natin, 0. Then, press enter so that the class width will become 3. Okay? And we always need to round up the value because if we will not do it, there is a tendency that the number of classes won't be enough in the distribution. Now, after identifying the class width, which is 3, we need to select a starting lower class limit. And you can always use the lowest value in the data set, which in this case is 7. So we start with 7. And how do we find the remaining lower class limits? Okay, ako kasi kadalasan ng ginagawa ko, lower limit muna lahat kinukomplete ko. By just looking at the class width. 7 plus the class width is equal to 10. So the next in a lower class limit here is 10. And then the next is 13 because if you add 3 on 10, it's 13. 'Di ba? Ngayon, kung ayaw nyo yan at nasa Microsoft Excel naman kayo, ayaw nyo na manually, pwede namang equal sign, whatever the value before this number, just need to add 3. Press enter. And then, drag the formula up to here. Okay, when to stop? Up to 19. Why? Because the number of classes that we set is 5. So, dapat 5 lang itong ating mga intervals. So, ano itong mga to? These are the lower class limits. How do we find the upper class limit? Simple lang. All you need to do is what? To add 3. Kaso hindi. Because when you add 3 to 7, it's 10, di ba? Dapat yung mga class limits natin hindi nag-overlap. So, anong gagawin natin ngayon? Simple lang. Ito lang ang technique. Look at the next lower class limit, which is 10. You just subtract it to 1. So, the next number here is 9. And then here, it should be what? 13 minus 1, which is 12. Ayan lang yan. Okay? Pero kung napansin nyo, tignan nyo, ang difference ng 9 tsaka 12 ay 3 din. So, ibig sabihin, kung gusto nyong malaman yung mga susunod dito, same formula lang sa lower class limit. Pwedeng equal sign, and then ito, plus 3, which is the class width, and we'll be able to get the remaining upper class boundary. O, ganun lang. Ngayon, anong kulang? Siyempre, dahil interval yan, oops, naging formula siya. Dapat enter lang pala. Ayan. Dapat magmukhang interval talaga. Okay, tignan nyo yung ginawa ko dito sa Microsoft Excel. Gumawa ko ng isang column para dito sa mga to, para sa interval symbol natin. At gumawa ko ng isang column para sa lower tsaka sa upper class limit. Pero bakit ko ginawa yon? Para mas madali ang pagkuha ng class boundaries. To find the class width, we just need to subtract the lower class limit with 0.5 and adding 0.5 on the upper limit. So here, in our example, the lower limit here is 7. So all we need to do is to subtract 7 with 0.5 so that the answer is 6.5. And by copying this formula, ayan, copy natin yung formula, we now have the lower class boundaries for the left side. Now, sa right side naman, paano makukuha? Instead of subtracting, we need to add 0.5. Okay? So by doing that, we now have the complete class boundaries. Okay? And of course, lagyan natin ng interval dito para magmukhang class boundaries talaga. Okay, now, ano na ang natapos natin? We have the class limits, we have the class boundaries, and then we have now the class mark. How do we get the class mark? We can get the class mark by dividing the sum of the lower and the upper limit. Paano yon? Equal sign. You just add the lower plus upper limit, then divide it by 2. So that the answer is 8. So 8 is the class mark in this example. Now, by dragging this to copy paste the formula, we have now a complete column for the class mark. Now, this is the most interesting part of our discussion. How do we identify the frequencies if we have class limits? In my previous videos, I talk about countif and count function. And this time, we'll use the countifs with S function. Same, we just need the criteria and the range. But this time, since we are looking for several values like 7, 8, 9 in this case, we need to use the countifs function. So to do that, we need to type this formula and then we need to select our range. So our range is this one. And I need to use the absolute reference, right? Because if we want to copy paste the formula, we're going to need this. And for that, I'm going to select F4 on the keyboard. Now, nandyan na yung criteria natin. How about the values that we are looking for? The values that we are looking for are values greater than or equal to 7 because it's 7 to 9, right? So meaning I need to use equal or greater than or equal to. Okay? Ganyan lagi ang position, greater than, equal, or kaya less than or equal if you are combining these two um, symbols. Now, it should be greater than or equal to 7. Correct? Okay. Pero it's not enough. When you say greater than or equal to 7, it might count 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 because those values are greater than 7. So we need to set another criteria. That is why we use countifs function so that we can select different criteria in one formula. So in this case, I chose the same range, but looks like I was not able to select it properly. Okay, and now we have the same values here. I need to use the reference, absolute reference, and this time I will add less than or equal to 9. So we need to set the boundaries. It should be 7 to 9. Okay, so here, going to close it, the formula, and the frequency for numbers having 7, 8, and 9 in the dataset is 9. So that's how you use the countifs function. So again, all you need to do is to set this range and then selecting a criteria which is greater than or equal to 7. Then selecting the same range so that we will have another criteria, and this time it's less than or equal to 9 because the numbers that should be counted should not exceed 9, but it could be equal to 9. So kinount niya 7, 8 at saka 9. By using the absolute reference, we can now copy paste this formula and we have the same values here. Siyempre, mali pa yan kasi we need to change our formula. A while ago, it's 7 to 9, but this time it's 10 to 12, right? So ito yon, 10 to 12. Then press enter, you have 17. Another one, this is 13 to 15. Press enter. Then this one is 16 to 18. Then we have the last one, which is from 19 to 21. This is very helpful because if you have a data set containing 500 values or 1,000 values, it will be easy counting them if you know this function. Okay? And to check whether our frequencies are correct, we need to get the total frequency. So I place a separate row here for the total frequency, and the formula is just sum. The sum of all these cells is just equal to what? 50. And that's definitely correct. Why? Because in the given, we have 50 selected SUVs. For the percentage, this will be easy this time. We just need to what? Multiply the frequency, which is 9 in this case, to 100, and then divide it by 50. And since I'm going to copy paste the formula, I will use absolute reference by pressing F4 in the keyboard. Okay? So pressing enter, we have this percentage for the first class limit 7 to 9 with the frequency of 9 and a percentage of 18. Now, dragging this, we have now the percentage of each class limit. Now, to check, you can use the sum formula, then adding this should give you 100. So, for now, it's correct, right? How about the cumulative percentage? All right, to get the cumulative percentage, all we need to do is to identify the first value here, which is 18, right? And we started with 18 because I'm referring to less than the upper class limit cumulative percentage. Now, I'll start with 18, selecting 18 here. Now, maybe nagtataka kayo no, kung bakit naglagay pa ako ng formula dito if I can just type 18, right? But what if this percentage will change? Eh di yung formula gagamitin ko sa mga susunod, mag-iiba din. So, gumagawa pa rin ako ng formula that is equal sign, then selecting a particular cell so that whatever changes will happen in the percentage here would also change this starting value. Okay? Kasi we're using Excel, so maximize na natin yung use, di ba? Now, to get the cumulative percentage, we all know that we need to add 18 and then 34. So, we can use the formula 18 plus 34 equal sign. And doing the same pattern will give us these values. Ayan, 'di ba? Okay, so ito na yung ating less than upper class limit cumulative percentage column. Now, for the greater than, we all know that we need to start with the 2 here, right? Percentage 2 here because we're looking at the values greater than the lower class limit, right? So we need to use the formula here again for the starting point as 2. And then we all know this time we need to add 2 and 14 plus 14, this one. And following the same pattern will give us these values. And the way for us to check if whether those two columns are correct is to find the last value. It should be 100, right? Because it's a cumulative column. And we have now completed our frequency, percentage, and cumulative distribution for the fuel consumption of selected sports utility vehicles in a large city. So we can see here that 34% of our samples said that they only get 10 to 12 kilometers per liter in a city driving, which is normal, assuming these are coming from sports utility vehicles consumption meter, right? So it's just right. And some get 13 to 15 kilometers per liter. And there is only one vehicle who reach the 19 to 21 kilometers per liter consumption. Sobrang tipid nun, di ba? Okay. And how about the percentage of those SUVs who are averaging less than 15 kilometers per liter. So we're referring to less than, therefore we need to use the less than upper class limit cumulative percentage. So they're about 84%. So majority have only average of 15 kilometers per liter and below. Yan. So but how about those vehicles having 16 kilometers per liter above consumption? So there are only 16 of them. And why am I using this column? Kasi I'm referring to greater than the lower class limit. So this is lower class limit 16 and I'm asking those values greater than this value. So there are only few, no? Kasi in a city driving, mahirap ma-reach itong 16 to and above kilometer liter consumption. Right? So tama lang yung data natin. And thank you for learning the topic with me. If you want more discussions about frequency, percentage, and cumulative distributions, please check out my other videos. See you next time.